One of my favorite topics. So please enjoy this. Please enjoy this. Education that I've been wanting to bring for a long time. And to break it down precisely. Man, enjoy this. Why African descents in America should never, ever, never claim or call themselves black, Negro, colored, nor African American. Because that equals civilita mortem, which is dead persons. It just falls in that category that is not protected by law. It don't follow the constitutional law. And even in civil, it's not even speaking of the claim, but the what is claimed to, which is person, which is 3/5 of a person, not a whole person, just 3/5. That's what a person is in law. So let's start with Dred Scott. Dred Scott was a slave. Okay, he was bought by a certain person, and when he traveled to a certain land, Missouri, where because it was west of what was outlined as what is slave territory, you had the Northwest Territory. So he was in the Northwest Territory. He wasn't in the 13 colonies. He was in the Northwest Territory in Missouri, if you've heard of anything about the Missouri Compromise. And he sued for his freedom. Now, I don't know if you know about this woman right here, Elizabeth Freeman, a.k.a. Mumbet. So funny. This woman sued for her freedom also. Dred Scott sued for his freedom 1854, went to a Supreme Court decision in 1857. Elizabeth Freeman sued for her freedom in the 1700s. You don't really know about this woman. They keep it under wraps for whatever reason, but she's a national treasure. So when the Dred Scott decision came out in 1857, Chief Justice Roger Taney, this was a clipping of him, still a slave. But the thing about it is, when you go into court, okay, whatever you say you is. Whatever you claim to be, you are that. Okay? If you went into the court and said I'm a car, you a car. If you go in there and say I'm free, I am free. But he didn't do that. He went in there and said he was a slave suing for his freedom. Elizabeth Freeman did the opposite of that. She used the Constitution and sued for her freedom. And she stated that under the Constitution, all men are created equal. So she challenged the court. Like, well, if all are equal, then I must be free too. She just used the Massachusetts State Constitution, which should not ever be contrary to the United States Constitution. This was in 1780. Suit went in 1781. This is her house that they're preserving as a national treasure. Okay? Now listen to me very carefully. A person is property by law. Because person is not even in, quote unquote, the Constitution. It's not referred to as a citizen. A person and a citizen is not the same thing. When they created the United States 14th Amendment, which created citizenship, ship is a title of nobility. Congress do not have the power or authority to grant title of nobility. Only people can grant the title of nobility are the people that created the Constitution. Know that. An American citizen has and never, ever, ever will be a slave. Many people are United States citizens, which make them citizenship persons. That's property by law. It's the only thing that governs it. If you can't find it anywhere, it might not exist, if you understand. Meaning you may not exist. You claim something that's not even protected by law. There you go. This right here is the 13th Amendment. This is the revised 13th Amendment that we use today. This is not the original 13th Amendment. This is not the 13th Amendment that Abraham Lincoln wrote. No, no, nope, nope, nope. You're like, how do you know that? What you mean how I know that? I read. Let's do some studying right now. Research. The United States 13th Amendment, the real one, has 20 sections. 20. They gave y'all 2. There are 20 of them bad boys. You don't believe me? There it is right there. The 13th Amendment with all open 20 sections. And I'm gonna go to a specific part and I'm gonna break it down for you very, very precisely. This part right here, Section 12. The traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death and the forfeiture of the rights and property of persons engaged therein, and the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Now, the decision of Dred Scott was the same exact thing. Free or enslaved, African descendants was not made to be, was never intended to be made citizens. And so you may ask yourself, well, what does that mean? Well, the Constitution states very carefully, there are more than one nation here. Moors have their own nation. American citizens. See, the Constitution stipulates 2 types, citizens in the states and citizens of the states. And if you ever notice why the United States or the Unionized States of America is the only place to have states, because states are X'd out. What you mean they're X'd out? Well, it used to be estates held under trust. But since they kicked out the trustees, right, which were the American citizen, which were the Moor and the indigenous natives. Well, I'm sorry, indigenous natives, 2 different separate things. Indigenous are the Shotans, were the Moors, and the Native Americans, which were the quote-unquote Indians. 2 separate. They're 2 separate. One was already here for over 100,000 years. That was the Moors. The ones that came here over the Bering Strait from the was Mongols, which became natives, which became the Native American Indian. 2 different sets. One is from African descent. The other one is not. Okay? The ones that are African descent, they ain't talking about the Native American Indian. They're talking about the American citizen, Moorish American. We were never supposed to be a part of the United States. We were supposed to keep and have our own nation. Dred Scott went in and said he was property. He came out property. Elizabeth Freeman came in and said she was free. And guess what she came out as? She came out as free. Because she knew and understood and overstood law and what it means of your legal status. It's the most important thing you will ever not know is your legal status. What are you? And what are you based on history by law? So you can claim to be something and be loud and proud about it, but when you are subjected to law, you may fall under property, not an American citizen. And if you are a United States citizen, you are now under citizenship, which is also a slave. Yes, white folks too are property. You know why they're property? Because they're not Americans. They are immigrants. And they will always be under the king rule. But Moors, Americans, are what you call so-called black people, which have not been taught who they are. See, they were taught Christianity. They gave up being a Muslim because they don't know who they are originally. And just like many of us that don't know who we are originally, we will remain generational slaves until we get free. You better get some knowledge yourself and don't let your enemy teach you anything.